Woodrow Wilson did all that a man could do, tried to keep us out in every way.
I'm Neil Kephart. I'm the park superintendent. I've been here for a little over 11 years. The CCC was responsible really for providing the initial resource to do a lot of the development within the park. Wyalusing became a state park in 1917, but was left pretty much natural, other than a few gravel roads and things, and some picnic areas, and what was developed here when it was once, privately owned. But it wasn't really until the CCC provided the labor force to provide a lot of the development that things really took off within the park. The CCC started in June of 1935 when the 2672 company moved here from Hales Corners. And so they brought with them a lot of men and equipment from that part of the state, came here. It continued for about 2.5 years until October of 1937. And in those 2.5 years, they were responsible for a lot of the trail development within the park. As Maurice mentioned, they did a lot of work on the trails. Coming here in June, one of their first tasks was to build their barracks. They lived in tents to begin with while they constructed the barracks within the park. And then once those were developed, and they started working on the trails and some of the buildings in the parks and the roads. They improved or constructed most of the roads that we have today within the park. There were basically 4 trails that were old wagon roads within the park. One, Walnut Springs, was part of the old military road between Fort Crawford and Fort Winnebago, and that became Walnut Springs Trail. Another one called Old Immigrant Trail down along the Wisconsin River was once a wagon road, and that was kind of converted to a hiking trail. There was Old Wagon Trail now, Old Wagon Road Trail in the park that was also one. And probably the most significant structure that they worked on in the park was the building right behind us, now called the Peterson Shelter. They began the work on that, had the walls and floor and foundation and everything up. When the CCC disbanded in 1937, many of the men stayed on and worked in what became the WPA. And finished then many of the structures and the overlook points. They built many of the picnic shelters within the park, and also the current park office that is still the park office now. We've just begun recently building a new entrance and visitor station, and that really is one of the major undertakings as far as buildings go since the CCC. They're significant from the standpoint that they were such labor-intensive projects with cutting the stone and the beams that they're constructed with now, that any of the buildings that you see being built now within the state simply aren't being built like that because of the cost and the labor. And so we have to, from a management standpoint, we really have to pay close attention to those buildings and to try to maintain them. The massive beams that they were built with, over time, some of those have started to deteriorate, and we're having to replace some of those. There's one on our park office that's about a 14-inch square beam that you just don't go down to the lumber yard and pick one of those up. We have to make special arrangements to go through a local sawmill to cut those specially for us. And so they pose kind of a unique maintenance responsibility that we try to keep up with. Many of them we have gone back over the years and put new roofs on, but structurally they're really sound, and with a little care I think will last for many, many years. A lot of people when coming to the park, and when you talk about state parks, kind of the image of the old stone shelter building kind of pops up, and so they're unique to a lot of parks in Wisconsin, and so we will strive to keep those, of course, in the best shape that we can. The scenic overlooks that we have right down below us here, there's Council Point and Signal Point and Point Lookout are kind of the 3 right in this area. We also have some other real popular overlooks in the park, one called the Knob, which is at the end of the Wisconsin Ridge Campground, And over in an area to the south along the Mississippi River is Sentinel Ridge Lookout, and there's also Passenger Pigeon Monument there, which stands as a monument to the passenger pigeon overlooking the Mississippi River. The things that we're the most noted for probably are our lookout points and our trails and our picnic areas. Really, yes, like you said, they really began the push to provide those types of facilities.
Poor Wyalusing did all that a man could do, tried to keep us out in every way he knew. But at last we had to fight and stick up for our nation's right, so every Yankee should do something to help. Now if you're not a fighting man, just look round and find something that you'd like to do, a job you could mind. Women with a needle sewing, men out on the farm a hoeing, helping in